Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Sharon Bown, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Corporal Kabora Ali. Today marks the 121st anniversary of the end of the Boer War in South Africa. The Boer War began in October 1899 after two Boer republics, the Orange Free State and Transvaal, fearing British colonial ambitions, invaded the British-held colonies of Natal and Cape Colony. The British suffered a series of successive heavy defeats, which came to be known as Black Week. The Australian colonies were quick to offer troops to Britain, and the first Australian contingents began arriving in South Africa in December 1899, too late to take part in the actions of Black Week. In February 1900, Queensland and New South Wales troops took part in the relief of Kimberley. The Boer armies became fragmented during 1900 after suffering a series of defeats. The Boers continued to operate in groups of highly mobile commandos which fought a guerrilla war against the British and their allies. The mobile war suited the Australians, who predominantly fought in mounted units, though their horses suffered terribly in the harsh conditions of the veldt. Australians took part in many iconic battles during the Boer War, such as Diamond Hill, Eland's River, and Williamsrust. After the Federation of Australia on the 1st of January 1901, the new nation raised 8 battalions of mounted infantrymen for service in South Africa. However, only the first 2 battalions arrived in time to see service. The war came to an end on the 31st of May 1902, when the Boer republics signed the Treaty of Vereeniging in Pretoria. Over 16,000 Australians served in South Africa in Australian contingents. Others served in British or South African units, and a small number fought for the Boers. Conditions in South Africa were particularly trying. Of Australia's 588 fatal casualties, 282 were killed in action or died of wounds. 286 died from disease, and another 38 died due to accidents or from other unknown causes. Today, we remember all those who died as a result of their service during the Boer War and whose names are recorded here on the Roll of Honour. We will shortly recall the story of one of those casualties, Lieutenant Percy William Chanter Drage. This evening, we are honoured to acknowledge the study tour from the Centre for Strategic and International Studies and ANU National Security College. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, would you now please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil. Our home is God by sea. Our land above
those requiring a seat please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Percy William Chanter Drage. Percy William Chanter Drage was born in England in the late 1860s, the second of the 5 sons born to Binion and Lizzie Drage. Drage joined the British Army as a teenager and was sent to the British Protectorate of Bechuanaland, modern-day Botswana, in 1885. There he joined the mounted infantry unit called Mithwan's Horse, which undertook patrols designed to prevent Bechuanaland from falling under the influence of the neighbouring Boer republics. In 1886, at the close of that campaign, Drage left the British Army and immigrated to Sydney in the colony of the New South Wales. He joined the permanent military forces of the colony in the early 1890s. With his soldiering background, Drage entered the New South Wales Engineers at the rank of warrant officer and worked in clerical duties at Victoria Barracks. In 1898, Drage married Minnie Hadcott, the daughter of a highly decorated British Army officer. In October 1899, after a worsening political deadlock in southern Africa, Boer forces invaded the British colonies of the Cape Colony and Natal. Britain declared war on the 2 Boer republics, the Orange Free State and the South African Republic. Each of the Australian colonies committed troops to the conflict. Drage was commissioned at the rank of lieutenant and joined D Squadron of the 1st New South Wales Mounted Rifles. His unit left Sydney on the transport ship Southern Cross in mid-January 1900, arriving at Cape Town in mid-February. After spending some time in the camp outside Cape Town, the horses and men of the Mounted Rifles travelled on trains to the borders of the Orange Free State. Like the unit he had served with in Africa as a young man, the Mounted Rifle was a mounted infantry unit. It and similar units from around the British Empire added speed and mobility to the British forces, which was needed to counter the mounted Boer forces. By the middle of 1900, the New South Wales Mounted Rifles had participated in the main thrust of the British forces through the two Boer republics. By June, the British had captured Bloemfontein, the capital of the Orange Free State, and Pretoria, the capital of South African Republic. Boer forces had gathered along a low ridge east of Pretoria and were posing a threat to the city. British forces, including the New South Wales Mounted Rifles, launched an assault on the main ridge of this, known as Diamond Hill. On the 12th of June 1900, after assault the previous day, the men of the Mounted Rifles charged up on foot Diamond Hill. When they reached the crest, they came under concentrated rifle fire from the Boer forces at the top of the ridge. Drage was hit by bullets in the leg and the head and was badly wounded. After a short time, he died where he had fallen. The British assault was a successful one, and the Boer forces retreated from the area. The British Divisional Commander, General Ian Hamilton, wrote in the divisional orders after the battle, he deeply regrets the casualties and especially the death of Lieutenant Drage when bravely leading his men. Percy Drage's remains are buried at Donkerhoek Military Cemetery near Pretoria. In Australia, he was survived by his widow Minnie. The year after his death, his engineer comrades in Sydney unveiled a plaque to his memory in St. James Church, King Street. Two of Drage's younger brothers served in the British Army during the South African War. Private Alan Drage of the Northamptonshire Regiment and Sapper Eustace Drage of the Royal Engineers. Both men died in disease in early 1900 while in the field. Lieutenant Percy William Chanter Drage is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, one of almost 600 Australians who died while serving in the South African War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Percy William Chanter Drage, who gave his life for us, for his country, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.